You've probably noticed that your parents have thought loops. And what I mean by thought loops is just like something that they think about way too much, but they can't really help themselves. It's like they always think about the dog, or they always think about the lawn, or they always think about your one relative who they like to gossip about. Whatever it is, they can't help but keep thinking about this like stupid, kind of just unimportant thing. And they talk about it a lot. And it only gets more and more more and more, like, cyclical as they get older. Their thought loops become tighter and more repetitive, and honestly, it's very frustrating. As you're growing up, it's very frustrating because you've lived with them your entire life, and you can see the way in which this thought loop is, um, kinda minimizing the enjoyment of their life. You're like, "Man, if you could just break out of this thought loop, like, there's so much more out there." And yet I would challenge you to use that thought loop, your parents' thought loop, as a springboard for gratefulness rather than resentment. Like when I'm sitting down with my dad and I notice that he's getting into a thought loop, admittedly, this is probably not the most healthy habit, but what I do is I kind of ignore what he's saying and I just focus on him, like the whole him. I listen to his voice, I watch his face, I watch his mannerisms. I'm just appreciating the fact that he's there with me because I know that one day he's not going to be there with me. So I'm just focusing on that little stuff. And sure, I'm not really paying attention to the thought loop or the words, but when I leave that interaction with him, I feel grateful for the time that I got to spend with him versus being like, fuck, he's not changing. Because if you're hoping that your parents are going to like make radical change as they're getting older, you're probably hoping on the wrong thing. Like, I'm not saying they won't, but most older people get more and more entrenched in their thought loops, and that only kind of increases. So just surrender to it. Let it happen to a degree. If they're going to break it, they're going to break it. If not, just enjoy them for what they are.